Oh, they've done it! Steven Tirada, an instant hero! Can you believe this? Plenty attacking! No! The comeback is complete! A stunning second half from Schalke!
Blau und weiß sein Leben lang. Hallo meine Leute. Willkommen zum einzigen Schalke Podcast auf English. That's right, folks. Officially the world's only English Schalke podcast. Welcome to episode 132 of SchalkeMerica. I'm your host, Richard Carmen. Joining me as always, co-host Jack Mangan. Jack, how are we doing this evening?
Victory Monday. Once again,
Victory Monday.
It's only now that we're having a couple of these that I'm realizing how infrequently we had said that over the past couple of seasons and how starved for a little Victory Monday celebration we are. But here we are once again. That's 2 in a row, and love to see it.
The Schalke train kept it rolling. Yeah, no, it's rare for us to say. We're not used to saying it again. We got to get used to this, hopefully. But yeah, I like what I've seen so far. It was an interesting game, a game that was always going to be a difficult opponent. They were second in the table. They started out the season very well. Hadn't had a loss coming into this one. It's what we're seeing so far is almost every week is a challenge. I think Paderborn is going to be a team going to be there at the end. In terms of challenging for promotion. What are your thoughts on the game and everything, how it went so far?
Yeah, in this, ultra competitive Bundesliga 2 this season, Paderborn, obviously one of the bigger, more well-known clubs just because they've also recently been in the top flight along with several others. So a team that we were obviously familiar with to some extent. And as you said, in good form recently coming in, I think they had won I don't know if they'd won 4 in a row, if they were unbeaten in their last 4, something like that, but I think they had won at least 3 in a row, something along those lines. So very much in form. And the last time that we had played a team that was kind of in that kind of form, it was Regensburg, which did not go particularly well for us. And so I think it was an interesting game to look forward to from the perspective of, we're kind of staying afloat at the moment, but let's see how we do against another team that's kind of at the top of the table in better form, figures to be there at the end, as you mentioned. So this was kind of another early season test to see where we were, and we'll get into it. And it'll be interesting to hear what your thoughts are on how convincing those 3 points were. But at the end of the day, that's the result, and pretty happy with it, gotta say.
Yeah, I think the big worry, what we said last podcast, which is 2 weeks ago with the international break, is that we knew Paderborn was good. They're top of the table. Could we approach them with more respect than we did against Regensburg? Regensburg, obviously, we didn't take them seriously enough, and they battered us. It seems like the boys were more focused for this game and this one. So, should we just get into the game and get into the lineups here, Jack? The home team, which is Paderborn, in this one, you had Huth starting in goal. They went with the back four of Jalsen, Van der Riff, Hoenmeier, Collins. In the midfield, they had Melheim, Schalberg, Schuster, and Justvan with Serbeni and Mikel up top. The 2 guys up top seemed to be the danger men for the team. Of course, I didn't know these guys going into the game, but as you're watching the game, those 2 guys seem to be the big ones that you had to worry about, Jack. What are your thoughts on the Paderborn lineup?
Yeah, Mikel in particular, I think he had 4 or 5 goals already this season, maybe 4. I forget, but one of the higher scorers in the second division and the highest score on Paderborn so far. So certainly a danger man there to watch out for. And I think I'm pleased with how we managed with him for the most part. I think we only allowed 1 or 2 shots from him all game, none on target, as compared with our guy, our main man, Simon Tirada, I think had something like 6 shots, 4 on target. So that's definitely the way you want that split to end up when you're talking about kind of the main danger man from either team. Not a lot of opportunities going Paderborn's way through him.
Sorry, I'm just adjusting my seat here. I'm like, oh, I'm off centered here. No. It was certainly 2 danger men. I thought Serbeni was doing good as a second striker and feeding Mikel and getting some opportunities. I was worried that they were going to catch us on the counter. Excuse me. Looking at our lineup is actually fairly standard for one change, I guess, that I was pleasantly surprised about. Fairman, obviously starting goal. Back 3 again of Kaminsky, Itakura, and Tiao. Midfield 5, you had Ojan on the left, Trulinov on the right, Salazar, Paulsen, of course, in the middle. This time, defensive midfielder Florian Flick into the lineup, Jack. Of course, with the two horses up top, Bulter and Tarota. Obviously, Flick was the guy who came to my attention right away when I saw him in there in his natural role. Thoughts when you saw Flick inserted into the lineup?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're all just biased towards the young guys because we want to see him, and we want to see him develop. And in a transfer window this past couple months, where so many guys that we expected to have, at a minimum, like some role to play this season, if not having decent minute share, have either been shipped out or we haven't really seen featured. So yeah, it's nice to see Florian Flick back in there, and yeah, not in the back line, as we said was the case a couple times earlier this year. And you and I both, I think, agree that probably wasn't the best spot for him. Once again, obviously, we're not on the ground and training every day. We don't see exactly what's going on, but somebody who seems a little bit out of place back there, and certainly more at home in the midfield. So nice to see him get a start.
Sorry, I can remember to unmute my microphone before I talk. It's the game. We all know what happened. We won 1-0. Simon Tarota goal in the 63rd minute. It was an interesting game, Jack. I thought early on in the first half, though we looked decent, at times we looked good. Paderborn, what it was evident to me is that they were good on the counter, and that they were a very strong team. They're good passing ability, very quick passing. I was worried that they're going to catch us on the counter because a couple of times what they were doing was the strikers, in particular, Mikel, were splitting the defense and they were finding that pass behind the defender. And I thought they were going to catch us a couple of times, and they got close a couple of times. But that was the big worry in the first half. I thought overall it was a decent first half. The one thing for us that was glaring to me is the lack of opportunities we were creating. What are your thoughts on the first half? What'd you see, I guess?
No, I would agree with you that the times where Paderborn was able to try to go more direct and play some very, sharp, incisive passes kind of right to the heart of the defense, there were a couple opportunities there that were nerve-wracking and looked like they could have created something. And certainly a game where they did have a couple opportunities. Ralph Fährmann, once again, huge performance from him. And I think I don't know if he's going under the radar this season. I don't think he is amongst maybe Schalke fans, but yeah, I mean, like, he bailed us out a couple times for sure. So it's not as if we dominated this 1-0 game or anything. But I would say in terms of the opportunities we were creating, yeah, I think this has been a problem, most of the season so far. It's we're kind of getting away with it, but we're very much relying on Bulter and Tarada to be the primary creative engines for a lot of things. Most of the goals that we're scoring, it's one of them passing the ball to the other. And that's great to have that they have that connection. But how many of those have been them kind of coming up with something, often kind of in transition, or maybe through a kind of a weird broken play or set pieces, those kind of things. It's the old thing that we like to talk about in the show about not creating enough opportunities kind of from open play through kind of manipulating the defense, passing around, and those sorts of things. And so yeah, I think that's something to keep an eye on going forward. But in the meantime, nice to see, as you mentioned, Trot on the 63rd, 7 goals now. Bundesliga top scorer. What is it? 7 goals, 2 assists through 6 matches.
Yep.
What else could you possibly want from this guy at the moment? He's fantastic. And we can talk about the goal a little bit later, like in specifically what happened. But yeah, that's kind of my general feeling at the moment.
It's 2 points I want to bring up of what you said there. First, Ralph Fährmann. I brought this up in the live stream, and for those who didn't know, we live streamed during the game. So it seemed to be a good hit there. So maybe we'll try to continue that going forward. But yeah, I mentioned it during the live stream that Ralph Fährmann, it looked to me like, at least this season, he seems more short-handed, more confident. I feel like the last couple seasons, he's been dropping a lot of balls that he should be catching. And this season, he just seems to be on top of his game. It's not something we're necessarily surprised in, but, I think the fear maybe going into this season was maybe he had lost a step. And we haven't seen that thus far. And I think Schalke fans and even other fans from other teams are starting to like hold up, maybe he's really good again. What are your thoughts on Ralph Fährmann? Because I like you mentioned, he made some great saves in the game, some big time saves that really could have made an equalizer or something like that. So especially late in the game, he had a huge save on short side. So your thoughts on Ralph Fährmann and whether he's actually a little bit better this season or just the optics playing with our mind right now?
Well, a friend of the show, Abel Metzerosh, was actually at this game, I believe, this past weekend, and he said in the DMs that because he hates to give Schalke credit for literally anything, as you know, but said to be fair, Ralph Fährmann is actually very handsome in person. So he has that going for him at least. He definitely gives us, the factor you're looking for, something weird going on with the hair. Every team needs a couple players like that, as you know.
That's the coverage we're looking for, how handsome
yeah.
people are in person.
Exactly.
Thank you, Abel.
Yeah, exactly. This is the kind of analysis that people tune in for. But anyway, Ralph Fairman, outside of just his dashing good looks, very good at dashing the ball away from net this season. And yeah, as you said, there's that one chance late. I think that was actually our old buddy Felix Platt that played that in to, was it Program maybe, or I forget who took that shot, but both he had one in the first half too that was the other side from like kind of a similar angle. Both those were just hit venomously, and he had to kind of get down and really push those away, and he did a great job in both situations. Pretty quick reaction saves. And I mean I think as at times sketchy as our defense has been through the opening games, could have been a lot worse. Once again, I think every podcast that we've had, maybe the last three, we've mentioned multiple moments in matches where Fairman's made big saves for us that could have resulted in things being worse. And that's, I mean, honestly, that's kind of why I'm glad that we held on to him and that he was as selfless as he was in restructuring his contract to stay with the club. Things have been iffy for him. We didn't know exactly kind of like which Fairman we were going to see, but going into the second division with a goalkeeper of Fairman's caliber, who at times in his career has been a Champions League caliber goalkeeper. At the times where Schalke was qualifying, I don't think Fairman ever looked like super out of place in those games. I mean, he's a good keeper, on his day for sure. So I think, having a guy of that experience in a second division where maybe the bright lights of the relegation fight and that kind of pressure is off of them now, it could do him a world of good. And maybe, we talked about the issues. He gets the yips occasionally. It seems like sometimes where, he makes a mistake and then his confidence is gone for like 4 or 5 games in a row and kind of compounds. I just feel like that's not a factor at the moment. And I'm not going to say it won't be a factor at some point down the road, particularly if we get into some sort of close fight in some position in the table. But so far, he seemed like the experienced, steady hand we need back there, and has come up huge for us. And you love to see it because he's such a club legend. He's a guy you root for constantly. You want him to do well. It makes you happy. He's obviously a fan of the team, but also as him personally.
No, 100% there. And another point that you brought up that I kind of want to bring up, you mentioned how right now it seems like it's all Bulter and Toronto creating the opportunities. It's a very similar thing to what we said not too long ago about it's only Harit and Serdar creating all the opportunities for us, and no one else is doing their fair share of the work. Hopefully we don't get that kind of situation. One of the guys we had hoped that maybe could trigger and inspire some of that creation, Salazar, I think has left both of us wanting a little bit more. What we saw in the first couple games and preseason, whatever, he looked good. But since then, he's been very quiet. It seems like most of the other opportunities created either from Cherlinov on the right, Owayan on the left, or Drexler in the middle, it seems like. And it seems like Salazar has been very quiet. Now, someone brought up the point during the live stream that maybe, he's working his ass off. He's looking like a good box-to-box midfielder. But that's not really why we got him. We got him for an attacking midfielder role. And so the creation aspect is not there while he's working his ass off and is deserving his spot, I guess. We don't have a creative midfielder at the moment outside of the 2 wingbacks. Your thoughts on Salazar? I know you made a comment during the live stream, but expound upon that if you would.
Yeah, and it's not as if we're saying like Salazar's like a number 10 that needs to be like a Mesut type player. That's not what we're saying at all. I just feel like when this signing was made, a lot of the conversation around him was what he could bring to us in particular going forward, and adding a little bit in that department. And maybe that's, just really bad read on what the conversation was on my part, or, a poor player evaluation or something. But I just feel like he hasn't been involved for us in the bigger moments of the games going forward almost ever. Like, I feel like he's pretty anonymous and I don't hear his name called out a lot, which isn't to say he isn't, putting in a shift and has a good work rate and is doing things in other areas of the game. It's just, I think that part of it, I think I would just like to see a little bit more he kind of pops up onto the I think like the stat sheets in terms of like shots taken, but it's just kind of like the Kevin Prince Boateng, like long range, like random stuff. Like he'll have a couple pops a game out of nowhere, and it's not it's not kind of like the moments that you want to see him more involved in.
I agree.
Yeah, that's basically. But what I will say about the Toronto Bolter thing is, I would much prefer us relying on those guys than relying on your midfield. You know what I mean? Because that was the problem last year. Is like, okay, correct. Yeah, we have. Amine Harit and we have Suat Serdar who are, on their day great attacking midfielders that can create things and score goals. That's what you kind of want as a bonus ultimately is, hey, we happen to have midfielders that can score goals and get involved in the offense, but we also have a consistent, reliable presence up top. And so I'm much happier having a Simon Torrado who's like going to score you a goal every game, assuming that you get him enough opportunities. So I think in that sense, it's a slightly better position. And also you mentioned another guy in there, and that's who I want to shout out as well. Just because I don't want to, just because a lot of the goals are involving interplay between Bolter and Torrado. Oweyan's a guy that's been super impressive to me early in the season and is rapidly becoming one of my favorite players in the team. I think if you look at our crossing numbers in this game, that was an area of the game that we significantly outperformed Paderborn. And I want to say we had like I don't know, like 8 or 9 attempts that kind of found a target in the box at times. And Oweyan's always a big part of that. He had a really nice shot from outside the box too. A guy that can play a nice incisive through ball on the ground. And it's basically everything that we had been looking for from basically our left back play over the last couple seasons and haven't got. He's playing those crosses. He has good set piece delivery. He can combine on the ground. He gets forward, puts in a shift. So he's been really impressive as well.
Another guy on the left side who's been doing very well for us, and in particular the long passes, Kaminsky. He's been quiet this season in a sense that you're not hearing his name. That means he's doing good things. Defensively, if you don't hear the center back's name too often, or the central defensive midfielder like Paulsen, that means they're doing good things. Kaminsky is doing very decent work defensively. Offensively, he's contributing. He's got a couple assists to Toronto already. Maybe not so good on the short range free kicks, but long distance he's good. I think that's more for Oweyan and Salazar. But yeah, Kaminsky, I think, you mentioned this last podcast, how he's been quietly impressed. And I think, watching this game, it's continued that impression. And at first when you were questioning maybe his insertion to the back three, now you're like, he's got to be in it just because his passing ability alone, and even solid defensively. And Itakura had a better game too. Thoughts on Kaminsky and really the back three, in particular the two guys in the center and the left, on how they performed in this game?
Yeah, I mean, props to them. Clean sheet. Once again, not saying that there weren't opportunities and we didn't require Ralph Fairman to make a couple big saves in this one to have that clean sheet come to fruition. But yeah, and it's funny. I don't even think this was maybe Kaminsky's best game of the ones we've seen, as compared to like Itakura or Malik Chow. And this one I thought was better than we had seen him a little bit recently. But yeah, I do agree that like the thing that really stands out for Kaminsky is some of his distribution in the early games, not just on the assists, but makes some nice passes from time to time. And maybe I overvalue that when I'm rating center backs, but I mean, as long as a guy is like defensively solid, doesn't have to be the best defender in the world, doesn't have to be a brick wall, but as long as he's like defensively competent, if you can find a center back or two that can every once in a while, a couple times a game, play that line breaking pass and launch something, it's really valuable to have that extra option and build up, especially when we tend to struggle doing that from time to time and score a lot of things from transition, from set pieces. It's really nice to, once or twice a game, have a guy that can find something else and have the confidence to play a pass like that. And it's paid off for us on the score sheet a couple times this year. And so it's been a signing that I've been kind of, watching with interest, because not a guy I knew a ton about, obviously, coming in. He's impressed in certain ways.
So we went to halftime 0-0, no goals to speak of. It was a fairly even first half, I thought. But two things stood out to me. Florian Flick, though he was better in this game playing in his natural position, he still had much to be desired, I think. He's probably the one down spot on the team in the first half, I would say. That's my opinion. Again, better in his natural position. I think he needs more time to acclimate back into the starting 11. But I was happy that he has progressed, now going back into his natural role as opposed to when he played defender. And the second thing was, I was talking with, I remember Magnus and Torsten Schmidt, give a shout out from the live stream. Toronto was pretty invisible in the first half. Bolter was all over the place and a couple other guys, but Toronto was really quiet. And shout out to Torsten and even Magnus. They both said, this is when you look out for Toronto, because he's going to pop out of nowhere and get a goal. And Torsten even said in the live stream, he goes, this is at halftime. He's like, look in the 63rd minute, Toronto's probably going to get a goal. Boom, on the dot, Toronto gets a goal. The second half was much improved in the first half, I thought, Jack. The couple things that Paderborn was dangerous on, we adjusted better, I think, in that second half. We started attacking more, and then ultimately get that goal. Bolter with that great run from midfield. Somehow got through the defender, got past the goalie, saved it from going out, and passed it back to Toronto, who just taps it in and nutmegs the goalie. Great to see. I mean, you knew Toronto was just going to pop out of nowhere and get a goal. Bolter with the great work to do it. What were your thoughts on that whole goal run? Because it almost came out of nowhere. You're on mute.
Right, my bad. The second time you both done it. I don't typically mute myself during these, and then because you were doing it, I started doing it. No, I'm messing up as well. This is fantastic. What I was saying was going back to Flick for a second. I would agree with you that I think it wasn't the strongest performance from him. And I think actually all the subs that were made were subs that made sense. Maybe I'm not talking about like from a tactical perspective, but just in terms of who are the weaker performers in that game. I think Flick, Zalazar, and Cherlanoff were probably all guys that you could point to and not really have a huge issue with them coming off in this game. So I actually, so often you and I are like so frustrated about how quickly the subs come, what are the subs that are made. And this is one of those rare games where I feel like I actually kind of agreed with basically all those decisions, which is always nice to see. As for, the goal that you mentioned, I mean, once again, it's kind of what we've seen from them a couple of times. It's sort of almost like a pretty broken play to some extent. It's both are kind of awkwardly, chugging upfield, trying to avoid defenders, and Terrata making kind of a trailing late run off of that. And Bolter ultimately megs the defender, I think unintentionally, but megs him and kind of tries to run around it. Goalkeeper does a good job coming out to kind of get in front of it and block the shot or block the touch, whatever kind of happened there, because I don't think he kind of ran out of room. Bolter did. Yeah, and the ball goes towards the end line, and he is able to save it. I think part of the ball had gone out, but there's still a little bit of it over the line, and they kind of like, but I think it was fine. And he plays it backwards to Terrata, who had made that trailing run, and calm, composed, didn't look like he was surprised by it at all. Side foot, through the goalkeeper's legs to the right of the defender into the net. And the two of them combine again. And I think it's the kind of goal that you and I would have been pretty furious at conceding, because it's a classic example of just, defenders ultimately ball watching, falling asleep on the play. I mean, I think at the time that Terrata finally took the hit of that ball and struck it, there was probably 4 Paderborn defenders in the box, and none of them were marking him. And I understand that it looked like the ball was going to go out, that sort of thing. But if you're one of the several Paderborn defenders who aren't marking anybody, at least try to stay in front of them. There can always be a rebound, that sort of thing. And I feel like that's the kind of goal that Schalke would have conceded last year, or at times, and you and I would be furious about.
And it's the one threat that Schalke has. I mean, if anybody on Schalke's pitch you want to cover, it's Terrata, and they don't cover him. It's something we would have done for sure.
Yeah, just stop ball watching and put a body on somebody. Yeah, so I mean, fortunate from that perspective, but great invention from Bolter to save it, and Terrata finishing once again. So love it.
Yeah, and then my big fear in the game was that, as we've seen in other games in the past, in particular the OWL matchup, we get the lead and we all of a sudden drop back and try to defend for our lives. And we know we're not built for that. This team is not there yet. I don't know if they're going to be there by the end of the season, but they're not there yet at all. And us trying to defend for the remaining 30 minutes of the game, we knew it was a bad recipe. And what we saw is Schalke continued to press on. It looked like they had a couple opportunities to get more goals. I think Bolter missed a couple quality opportunities that he should have scored on, and some people were wondering, is this going to come back to bite us? Because we've seen this song and dance before. But got to give credit to the boys that kept pressing on. You mentioned some of the substitution. Go ahead.
No, Terrata actually had one fairly clear-cut chance that I think he had more time on, and he didn't get it around the keeper or something. And I was actually surprised. That was the first time where he missed kind of a clear-cut opportunity, or did.
He's human.
Well. But that's the bar that he set. Is he gets in those situations, you're he's going to score that, because he's been so good so far. So, but I mean, still had his goal anyway. Yeah, but I was kind of with you. It's always, whenever it's a 1-goal cushion with Schalke, you don't trust it. Particularly the way the defense has gone at times this season. You're we need that insurance goal.
No, 100%. And they kept fishing for it. They had a couple counters that were very scary. I thought, Fairman did come up big in that second half. We mentioned some of the players that, were struggling. Flick came off, which is good. I think Paulson came off at some point. Who did you mention? I forget. Cherlanoff, obviously. I remember screaming because Cherlanoff was doing some good on the offensive end, but defensively and in the midfield, he would just aimlessly turn it over. And those led to very dangerous counterattacks. And I kept screaming, get him off the pitch. And they finally got him off for 97-year-old, actually 21-year-old Matriciani.
That's your boy. That's your boy with the hairline, man.
That's my boy, man. He got the Rooney hairline on at 13. But yeah, no, the substitutions were good. Saw Peringer come on early for Salazar. That was the other one. So yeah, overall, I thought I was happy with the gameplay. I mean, you look at the shots, 14-16 in our favor, shots on target, 8-3 in our advantage. They had a little bit more possession. We mentioned it was very 50-50. They fouled a lot more than us. I think something 14-9 or something. Yeah. And corners are even. I think it was 5-4. We started off a lot of corners in the game, but they started going both ways at the end of the game. Yeah, it was a good result. I felt more confident going toward the end of the game than I did against the Owl matchup, because that's the game that scored late, I think. I felt more confident this because this is the way we were playing. It was more intent to try to go offensively, keep the pressure on, as opposed to sitting back on your laurels and hoping for the best. What were your thoughts on the way the team was just able to lock up shop and keep a shutout and get the win?
The second half was pretty open at times too, and so it could definitely be concerning, later in the game if we were going to hold on to it. I think the one thing that's, I'm not saying that we're anywhere near where we want to be yet in terms of, especially what we're doing, in possession. But I guess what I would say is, it's the coordinated pressure again, off ball. So many times in the past, like somebody would step and then the synchronization, like his teammate would be late, to making, the next move off of that to kind, and so often we're hunting in numbers, we're arriving in numbers, and we're throwing ourselves into tackles. We're very decisive in 50-50 balls. We're going after it. And so I think those things are benefiting us as well, because there's times we're putting them under more pressure than we typically do. And we're winning more of those 50-50 opportunities when something squirts away. We're the first ones to jump on it. And so that sort of edge and that work ethic and constantly doing that, I have seen a decent amount of that from us this season. And that's certainly an improvement. And if the players can stay bought in and keep kind of that work rate up, I think that's going to serve us well as we go forward. Especially like last season. And once again, it's not particularly useful to compare us to last season at this point because of how much turnover there is, different league, that kind of thing. But there's so many opportunities, just like it seemed like we were just the last guy to every loose ball. Just constantly second best in whatever, there'd be a contested header. And then, it bounces somewhere else, and there's, somebody has to pick up the loose ball there, and we're not the person that gets to it. And so many extra possessions that I think that we lost and forfeited over those last couple seasons, and that's been an improvement here. So, yeah, I've been impressed with at least the way Gramontis has managed to pull that out of the team at times.
No, I agree with you 100%. And, it goes kind of to those comments here from Jake. You mentioned the pressing. I know I was watching during the game, and I noticed how we were at times staying away, and then all of a sudden, once they get close to the midfield, we started pressing in numbers, causing Paderborn to be very unsure of themselves, causing unnecessary turnovers. And especially, I think that amount of pressing that forced them to run in that first half. Coming out of the second half, they looked very tired and looked like that's why we started taking advantage of them and getting more opportunities ourselves. Timely pressing, and it goes to what Jake is saying, is like, can we just take a moment and acknowledge one more time how well Gramontis is handling the game? Starting lineup, formation, halftime adjustments, substitutions, all well done by Gramontis. This was a better game by him in terms of management of the game, bringing on timely substitutions, the right people coming off, as opposed to some of the guys who may be on a hot streak. Thoughts on Gramontis and as a whole in this game and how he did?
Yeah, in this particular game, I think it was. It was fine. I haven't had that many issues with his lineup choices so far. I'm still not entirely convinced about us playing as coherently and as well as we need to in certain phases of the game. And I think there's work to be done there. But I guess the main thing was, as I said at the kind of the top of the podcast, this was a fixture where it was another opportunity for us to kind of go up against one of the better teams, one of the more informed teams. And I do absolutely feel like we looked like we belonged in this one. I don't feel like we looked like we belonged kind of in the Regensburg match. And there were periods of the time, like, in the opener against Hamburg, for example, where we looked, kind of thoroughly outplayed and kind of like second rate compared to the kind of football they were playing at times in that match. And this was a game, where I felt like we stacked up a little bit better. Ultimately results, all that matters at the end of the day. But I don't think the performance was bad or like a steal, like that doesn't, merit the result necessarily. So, work to be done. And I think everyone's still keeping a very close eye on Gramontis, but back up to 7th place in the table now. Just 3 points from first. It's pretty pretty tight at the top of the table, I should say. A couple wins on the bounce. And if we can stay in relatively good form in the next couple games, I think it's going to be difficult to make too much of a case for a change to be made in that position. And like I said, you and I think we're always in favor of giving him time. at the start of this one to see what he could accomplish. But, the fact that he did have an entire preseason now to work with these guys is going to make the leash potentially slightly shorter than it might have otherwise been. But, still relatively early days here. And I don't think we've seen anything kind of either way to be, firmly like super excited about what we're seeing or like very upset and like demanding a change. I'd be interested in your take on that. I know sometimes the conversation online has been trending towards we should consider making a move. How do you feel about things?
I'm with you. I think we should just stay where we are at the moment. I like the way that the trend is going. I mean, if we're at a point where we are so far out of even getting close to being in the discussion of promotion, I get that. We're 3 points from the first place, as you mentioned. You look at the table, Regensburg and Paderborn are still up top. We are just 3 points behind Regensburg at the moment. And as bad as we had started losing to Hamburg, getting embarrassed at Regensburg, we're 3 points from the top. It's not a bad way to start. I think we obviously have Karlsruhe coming up, who are just behind us, 1 point behind us. Rostock is on the horizon, who's a team we should beat. They're towards the bottom of the table, as is Ingolstadt right after that. They're at the bottom. So those are games we have to win. It's nice to see the victory against Paderborn. You want to do well against the teams at the top, but you have to beat the teams below you. That's absolutely must if you want to get promoted. So I'm curious to see how this is going to shape up here the rest of the next 3 games or so. But I've been pleasantly surprised so far. It's like you mentioned, Gramosius is doing fine. He's doing fine. You really haven't questioned him too much. Substitutions have been good. The lineups have been fairly straight up, and his adjustments I think ultimately has been the best parts. Is seeing the games, he's seeing what we're seeing, or we're seeing what he's seeing, and adjusting to that, and making the right necessary moves. At least in this game, he did. So I'm happy with where we're at so far, and I guess it begs the ultimate question: are we starting to believe yet? It's very early in the season. I know, 6 games in, but we are 3 points off the top. Are we believing, Jack? Are we confident that this team will be in the mix towards the end of the season? What do you think?
If by in the mix you mean kind of like within reaching distance
of promotion,
kind of the promotion fight, then yeah, I think there's a chance we'll be there. I forgot what my preseason prediction was, but I kind of figured we'd be, mid-table at worst. I didn't necessarily think we're like guaranteed to get automatic promotion.
I think you said like 5th maybe. I think I said 3rd and you said 5th maybe.
That might be correct. And if that's the case, I mean, yeah, I think that's certainly a possibility. Yeah, and then the thing to keep in mind, as you were just talking about Grammatis there, is like, you look at the starting lineup, Fairman, Malik Chow, and Florian Flick, the only 3 players that would have ever, been with the team last year, and Florian Flick only really playing in the last couple games, late in the season when he got promoted into the picture. So, yeah, I think it's fair that we have to say we have to give all these players time to develop chemistry with each other in his system through multiple games. It's an entirely new team with a bunch of players coming in from various clubs. It's not as if it's like, hey, Grammatis is the coach, but all these guys have some chemistry with each other because they've played for 2 or 3 seasons, most of them. It's an entirely new squad. And so, yeah, from that sense, I feel like we're okay with where we are. Am I starting to believe? I mean, I don't know. I mean, not really. I think I always thought it was going to be really tough for us to get promoted this season. And, not to speak this into existence, but, once again, like, I mean, if Terada goes down with injury, he's got 7 of our goals, man. Like, to your point, like, we're relying on Marius Bolter and Terada, and we need to find a way to kind of create some more outside of them. I would be kind of concerned about, the sustainability of our performances when we're kind of relying on the minimum goals that we're getting right now from these guys to kind of pull us through. It's working, but it's kind of like, or, are we taking advantage of this a little bit, and do we need to, kind of focus in some other areas and improve? I do. And I'm not entirely pleased with what I'm seeing with us, in possession under Grammatis. I'm not a huge fan of his sort of 3-5-2 system or whatever you call it in general. I think there's definitely areas of improvement, but yeah, obviously I'm feeling better than I was after the Regensburg match, and good results will do a lot for your belief in the team and everything. And Fairman's playing well, Terada's playing well, so you have a good anchor up top and a good anchor at the back, and could be in a worse situation for sure.
No doubt about that. Yeah, I'm curious for all the people who were on complete panic mode after the Regensburg match. Where are they feeling right now after the the two victories in a row here? Do they feel more confident or do they not? I'm curious. Tweet us at SchalkeMerica to let us know. I'm with you. I'm not yet a believer. I'm enjoying what I'm seeing. I'm enjoying seeing Terodde scoring. I would like to see more contribution from the rest of the team. I think, we didn't see Drexler in this one. I don't know if he was injured or whatnot, or maybe he had got COVID. I don't know. But he had been doing well previously. I want to see Owayan and Cherlinov getting more assists in there. They've been in the mix, but I want to see him create more. Obviously, Cherlinov got a couple assists already, and Owayan's has been fantastic with the deliveries. I want to see more from the team. And if Salazar or somebody in that midfield can pick up the pace as well, him or Drexler, that'd be even better. Paulson's been quietly very good in this season so far. Made some big saves already defensively. So he's
been against Paderborn. Paulson, we hadn't mentioned him, but he was very solid on that one.
Another guy who's been quiet because he was good.
Yeah,
we were worried because Latza, who was the team captain, he went out early in the season, and we were like, "What are we gonna do now?" Paulson came up, picked up, and it's like we never missed him, right? He's been playing very well. He looked decent in the international break, but has nothing really to do with Schalke, right? I think it's been good.
But this is the thing, though. I mean, you look at that midfield three in this game. Flick, Salazar, Paulson. In my opinion, we didn't get a whole lot from them in terms of contributing to the attack. So basically, you're relying on both Terodde and the wingbacks to create things, and I think that's kind of the problem. We need at least one other guy in there that can consistently a couple times a game create something, and I think that's kind of what we were hoping for out of Salazar. We haven't seen it. Not to throw it all on his shoulders, but Paulson's obviously more of like a number 6 defensive, that kind of thing, marshaling his team. And Flick, a couple plays last season where he showed some of that, but we consider him to be more of like a possession midfielder as well, so to speak. So that's something to keep an eye on. I think we need like one other little bit of spark, and I think we'll be in decent shape, because too much of the creativity is coming, like we said, from Bolter and Terodde, instead of them being the end product on creativity that's been created elsewhere on the pitch.
You know who I did like in this game that came on for Florian Flick, and I think he came on for Florian Flick. Iden came in. He was a nice little spark plug in the game. Maybe he can create the opportunities offensively, give us a spark. I think Drexler was missed. I think not having him in the lineup, he tends to stick his nose in there and be involved in the box all the time. Salazar, I think he's a good box-to-box midfield. He's not quite the attacking midfielder we need. We need still more contribution from that, whether it comes from the youth ranks or we signed somebody. I don't know. I know we nearly signed a striker with a checkered past, and I'm glad we retracted that offer. Many people are ecstatic that we didn't give him that offer out. But, we need to find a spark plug, because like you mentioned.
Did you see the Daniel Sturridge rumors recently?
I did not, but I'm listening.
That was subsequent to what you were talking about. Yeah, the move that we backed away from after a lot of fan outrage. But yeah, I saw a couple of rumors that we were in talks with Sturridge, but for financial reasons, it wasn't going to work out. I don't know if that would be true or not. That'd be hilarious if we ended up with a player like that in the second division.
That would be hilarious.
His recent struggles, yeah.
I mean, Jefferson Farfan still scoring goals. Maybe we get him from Peru. Who knows?
Can't wait till he's like a team manager, like on the side, like part of the coaching staff, whatever. If Mike Buskins can be, surely Jefferson Farfan can be for. I mean, Buskins is like always there. He's like one of those common fixtures.
No, that's funny. But yeah, we need some depth. We do. I mean, if one of the big horses up top go down, who steps in? Because by the way, we don't have a striker anymore. We lost Matthew Hoppe. That's one of the news that came out during the international break. Officially, Hoppe is gone. Harit is officially gone as well. Let's start with Hoppe. We mentioned we need some depth at striker. Hoppe was a guy we thought maybe could be groomed by Terodde and Bolter, seeing them score, getting the opportunity to learn from them. He gets shipped off to Mallorca, officially sold. I believe it was a sell, right, Jack? He's gone. We don't have a backup striker. I mean, Cherlinov is probably the next guy up. Thoughts on Hoppe, the Hoppenings experience that we had here, the short-lived one, I guess.
Have we seriously not talked about this in the last podcast? Did this happen after our last episode?
I believe it did. Officially.
That was on international breaks. I feel like we kind of lose track of time after a while. Yeah, it happened finally. We were kind of waiting for that one. Somewhere in America, Ethan at Tedesco time rejoices for the lack of any Americans in the first team at the moment. He's pleased about that. Dark days in SchalkeMerica, of course. I mean, listen, Hoppe had an opportunity to go play football in Mallorca, which I mean, I haven't been to Mallorca. I haven't been to Gelsenkirchen either. But like, I think if you're picking a location in which to ply your trade, in which to live, I think there's a clear winner there. And playing Spanish top flight football, for a club that has American owners and American ties, um, I can see why that's more desirable than the situation at Schalke, where you're second division in Germany behind a Simon Terrata, who's going to command the pitch time, deservingly so. I mean, from what I understand, the club situation at Mallorca is such that Hoppe can compete for decent minutes off the bat in the first team. I don't know if that's true or not. That's kind of the sense I got. If that happens, yeah, it could end up being a really good move for him. And I don't think this is necessarily a move that's like far beyond his level necessarily, playing for a club that's in the position of a Mallorca at the moment. But yeah, wish him the best. Would have liked to see more of him. Certainly would have liked to hold on to him. Ultimately, given what his transfer fee was, not as high as I think we were kind of like hoping it would spike up to. For the depth reasons that we discussed earlier, I would have liked to hold on to him this season, and he's certainly young enough where I don't think that would set his timeline back, playing a couple seasons with us still. But best wishes, and hopefully another SchalkeMerican steps up to the plate in the immediate future for us.
Evan Rotundo, come on up. Another guy who is not an American, a French player, Moroccan, I guess, by nationality. Amine Harit. He's on loan, not a sell, but he's on loan to Marseille. That seemed like it wasn't going to happen. It waited till well after the hours of closing. I mean, I know it's still open in France, but in Germany it closed, and most of Europe was closed at that point. They weren't able to pick him up until they officially sold somebody, and they finally got that deal done. But he isn't officially an Olympic Marseille player. I saw someone joke that I saw his highlight reel, and it was just like one move he made in the game, and the first game he played. But I know you joined the Marseille View recently on their podcast to talk about Amine Harit. Thoughts on Harit moving to Olympic Marseille and possibly getting a career rejuvenation or not?
Yeah. Joined them yesterday. Feel free to go check out their podcast. Certainly the American contingent, I think, of our listener base may be interested, not only for the Schalke crossover with Amine Harit, but of course Conrad De La Fuente, now at Marseille as well, from the U.S. men's national team perspective. Getting a lot of minutes over there, figures to have a big season leading up to, continuing World Cup qualifying from the international window that we just had. Yes, go definitely check them out. Harit, I mean, the interesting thing was that, as we've said on multiple podcasts in the past, the likes of Kabak and Harit and Suat Serdar were kind of the big names that we figured we'd be able to sell relatively easily for permanent transfer fees to kind of help us out. One, in getting their salary off the books, their wages off the books, but two, in actually getting some substantial transfer windfall to try to make some progress against this debt and fund some of the moves we wanted to make. And it didn't really work out that way with Kabak or Harit, and I think Harit in particular was surprising because even despite the past consistency, some of the issues off the field in the past, obviously had that kind of tragic situation with the car accident in Morocco post 2018 World Cup. I think there was some, talk of like gambling issues or something, or time he was spending at local casino, that kind of stuff. So he's had some issues at times off the field. I think you and I both kind of feel like his talent would kind of win out and kind of win the day, and somebody would spend some money on him and to bring him in. And so the fact that he was ultimately loaned out late in the window, as you said, with no option to buy, is very interesting to me. So I think what I would say is, could go a couple different ways. If Schalke somehow bounce right back up to the first division, there's no option to buy from Marseille. Maybe he slots back in and wants to stay at Schalke. I doubt it. I think it's more likely that, we're all kind of hoping he gets a lot of minutes, has a great display from Marseille, kind of ups his transfer value, and then we can reevaluate this next summer, hopefully for a much higher fee than what we were, able to get from the market when we were testing it this past summer. And then, as Renee just mentioned right there, looks good so far. And hopefully in a more stable situation with a better team playing, more important football, let's face it, he can slot in and have success. I mean, I think, Harit being back in France where he came from prior to joining us makes a lot of sense for him. And best wishes for him on a number of verticals, just personally for him. And then also, it's also good for us, obviously, if he plays well too. But certainly a player that, all of us, I think Schalke kind of root for and would like to see realize the potential that we all agree that he has.
Yeah, and I think him seeing at Schalke, he was one of the big fish on the team, and maybe the pressure was too much and he wasn't ready for it yet. Going to Marseille, he's not the big fish at all. There's certainly a lot of bigger name players that are there. I think Payet's even still there, right? So they got a good squad over there, and so it's good for him to kind of step back from the shadows and then do his thing, focus on himself and focus on the skill and really get his confidence back. And I think like Renee mentioned, like you said, he did well in his debut, and so let's see. Hopefully he does well going forward because if we bounce back up to the Bundesliga, he can contribute, or we can get some money for him like you mentioned. So I'm going to be paying attention to him, both him and Hoppe, see how they do. Obviously Hoppe more for sentimental reasons, but Harit could be potentially good for us in two different ways. So it's interesting take there with those two gentlemen who just left us. I do want to mention that apparently we even missed Jack. Our cousins in our rivalry with Dortmund, they've been missing us, Jack, and I check in with the Fear the Wall blog, and they were checking up on us. It was actually a nice article about us because they were like, I guess they're missing us because they're getting beat by Bayern and Leipzig this year, so they want to see how we're doing, and it's saying how we've started very well so far this year and this and that. So it's nice that we are feeling loved from our dear bitter rivals. What are your thoughts on our cousins checking in on us and making sure we're still are beating our hearts?
I haven't read this particular piece, so I'll have to go check that out. So maybe this was like legitimately a nice sentiment. But in general, what I see on social media is even though we're relegated, Dortmund fans still, the Schadenfreude when we perform poorly. And as I've always said, happy to distract Dortmund from their consistent mediocrity and failure to overcome Bayern Munich and others. Happy to be the punching bag from them so they don't have to look at themselves in the mirror and question what they're doing every year, their inability to actually secure a title. And for those of you who are watching the live stream, Renee just now bringing up Mendel scoring multiple times. We hadn't brought that up, and I was hoping no one was going to bring that up. So thank you for doing that.
Renee's not going to let that slip.
Yeah. Don't feel bad about that at all because I still stand by the fact that there are almost no performances in a Schalke kit in which he looked particularly good. Wish him all the success in the world, and niceties. I saw the highlights of one of those. It was like some long breakaway where there was literally no defense. So okay, sure, fine, congratulations.
Wait, is he playing striker again? Is he playing striker?
The second one was better. Yeah, against the Revere Derby where we had Weston McKennie and Mendel up. Oh my goodness, the flashbacks right now, terrible stuff. That was one of the ones where I drove to Columbus to watch that game too. Brutal. Yeah. But good for Hamza Mendel.
Renee says that's what he's here for.
Yeah, no animosity towards the guy. Hope he does well.
Oh man, that's good. That is good. Again, for those who missed the live stream, you missed a good time. I think we had a lot of fun. I had a lot of fun doing the live stream. Jack, you were on it as well. In the chat, we had a good time there. So we'll see if we can try to do it again. Next game is against Karlsruhe, so hopefully we can get that going. We definitely give shout outs to some of the German streamers. Obviously, Cedric Zalmat, who's been on our show at Schalke Corner. You had Koningsbau TV with Kesti for the Schalke Podcast as well. Who's over at the Shrunken Mushroom? What's that bar in Columbus?
Shrunken Head? I don't know.
Shrunken Head. Thank you. There it is.
Shrunken Mushroom.
Flashbacks to high school. No, I'm just kidding. So it's good times by all. Obviously, everyone's celebrating the Toronto goal when he scored. So hopefully we can keep this momentum going against Karlsruhe coming here. So any closing comments here? Obviously, it's good to get on a winning streak. I guess it's not officially a winning streak until you win 3 in a row, right? So maybe we can get that going.
Yeah, a couple of consecutive results, as we said. Once again, individual quibbles with certain parts of the performance, certain parts of Gramaz's system so far, sure. But, this was once again an informed side, a side that we figure is going to be in contention coming into the season. Nice to go and get a result on the road. Can't complain about that at the end of the day. So good to see.
No, I agree 100% with that.
One more comment from Renee in the chat just now asks us how we're coping with earlier kickoff times. Not well, particularly because this past Saturday evening I was at actually an Oktoberfest themed party in my town, a family friend of ours. So I don't think I returned home until about 2 a.m. and I had to be up at 6:30 a.m. for the kickoff. And once again, because Schalke has not allowed us to sign up for Schalke TV as of yet, despite our best efforts to pay them money to access the product that they purportedly sell. So we're having to buy the games individually on the OneFootball app with a VPN, which means we can't watch them on demand at all. So in this particular case, in order to, I couldn't go back and check parts of the match, rewatch parts of the match to prepare for the podcast. I had to rely on what I watched at 6:30 in the morning, kind of hungover after 4.5 hours of sleep after an Oktoberfest party. So that's the level of analysis you're tuning in for today, folks. Not that it's much better generally, but the short answer is no. We're not doing well with the early kickoff times.
I'm probably doing better than you because I'm used to waking up with a 3-year-old kid waking
East
up.
Coast too. You have an hour advantage.
I'm at 7:30. I have an hour advantage.
Yeah.
But yeah, we have to watch the games live. We don't have the benefit of the replays, but it's been interesting. And for me, at least, I'm trying to watch this game on the OneFootball app, and 2 games in a row now, I can't get the stream to work for the beginning of the game. I got to keep refreshing and doing this and that, and finally get the game going. Luckily, there's a German commentary on Schalke's website, which is free, which is helping out a lot. But we're both having a struggle so far, but we're trying to make sure everyone else who doesn't have the access, like you guys do in Germany, to share the wealth as much as we can, and hopefully these live streams will help in some way or form. At least have a spot, a community for Schalke fans to watch the game together, at least, and talk shit about the opponent. So, yeah, it's been fun. It's been fun. So, let's wrap this one up, Jack. Schalke US newsletter. If you haven't signed up for that yet, make sure you sign up. Use your email. You get it once a month. Get some updates from the club. Again, I want to give a shout out to the Schalke website. If you do want to listen to the game, you can't watch it, go to Schalke's website. On the left-hand side of the page, there's a little field icon. That's the match center. Click that during the games, and on the top, it'll say live commentary. Click that icon, and you can listen to the games free. You can definitely try to sign up for Schalke TV. Good luck.
Try the operative word in that. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm trying to be nice.
Sign up for Schalke
TV. Keep tuning in each week as we bring you the latest from the Royal Blues, whether it's live stream or the podcast. We'll try to bring you updates as much as possible. Good night, Renee. I see you having a good night there. We want to thank Schalke for providing us tidbits for our podcast tonight. Any topics you'd like us to discuss, anything you want us to do a live stream or video on, let us know at SchalkeMerica. Jack, anything or anyone you would like to plug here at the end before you tell people where they can find you on social media?
I'm going to take an opportunity to direct my attention to Chicago Bears head coach Matt Nagy and just say, please consider starting Justin Fields. And with that, you can find me on Twitter at JMMangan, JMMangan.
Beautiful. And then, again, the podcast that you joined, what was the name of their
Marside View. That's correct.
Marside View. Definitely give them a follow. Seemed a good group of guys. Definitely check out their episode that Jack was on to hear what his insights were into Amine Harit and what he possibly could bring to Olympique Marseille. So beautiful. As always, you can follow me at R_KHARMAN on Twitter, and make sure, if you're watching us on YouTube, subscribe to the page, leave comments, let us know how we're doing. And then you can find us anywhere on social media, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. You see the handles down below. And as well, you can listen to us everywhere: iHeartRadio, SoundCloud, Stitcher Radio, Spotify, iHeartRadio. We're everywhere. Apple Podcasts. So definitely give us a follow on our podcast. They are weekly. So until the next episode comes, my friends, stay ready. I'll be with you soon. Glück auf.